She told me to stay quiet, but silence only made me hear her heartbeat louder than words. The story begins not with words, but with silence, the kind of silence that feels alive, as though every small sound has weight. The classroom hums with the faint noises of learning, the scratch of pens across paper, the creak of old wooden chairs, the rhythmic tick of the clock overhead. Light filters through tall windows, dust particles drifting like tiny sparks caught in sunlight. It's ordinary, yet in that ordinariness, something quietly extraordinary is taking shape. She stands at the front of the room, poised and composed in a way that only comes with years of confidence. Every movement she makes is deliberate, the way she picks up the chalk, the steady control of her voice, the tilt of her head when she scans the room. She carries the kind of presence that silences without effort, not through authority alone, but through an aura of calm certainty. To the others, she is simply a teacher. But to me, sitting there, trying to keep my pen steady, she is something far more complicated. I catch myself studying her the way one studies art, the way her eyes linger on a student's notebook, the slight curve of her lips when she approves an answer, the grace in her posture. She doesn't try to be captivating, yet she is. And that's what makes it dangerous. When her gaze meets mine, it lasts only a second longer than it should. Long enough to stir a quiet storm inside me, short enough that I might convince myself I imagined it. Her eyes are steady, carrying both warmth and restraint. There is no smile, but there is recognition, as though she notices something in me she cannot say aloud. The pen in my hand stills, my breath falters, and I feel that weight in my chest, the awareness of her. The room itself sharpens in that moment. The sound of pages turning becomes distant, the air heavier, my pulse louder. She looks away, back to the board, but I am left with the echo of her attention. That brief connection unsettles me more than a spoken word ever could. When she leans over a desk to correct another student's work, her sleeve slips slightly, revealing the soft curve of her wrist, a detail so ordinary yet impossibly intimate in the way my eyes notice it. I scold myself silently, this is wrong, inappropriate, a boundary that should never be crossed. And yet, the thought refuses to let go. She speaks again, her voice low and even, carrying a quiet authority. It isn't the tone of someone who demands obedience, it's the tone of someone who doesn't need to. A voice that feels like it knows too much, one that could unravel me if I let it. By the time the bell rings and chairs scrape against the floor, the world returns to normal. Students laugh, chatter fills the hall, and she gathers her papers with practiced composure. But I remain seated a moment longer, staring at the board, trying to steady my breath. Because in the silence of that classroom, something unspoken began. And I already know, it will not stay unspoken for long. The classroom empties slowly, voices fading into the hallway until only a few students remain. I keep my head low, pretending to be absorbed in the notes in front of me, though my mind is elsewhere. I know she notices. She always does. Her heels click softly against the tiled floor as she moves from desk to desk, glancing at scattered papers, offering small corrections. When she reaches mine, I feel the air shift, a presence heavier than sound. She leans slightly, one hand braced on the wooden edge of my desk, the other pointing to the neat line of words I've just scribbled. "You're missing the detail here," she says softly, her tone even, yet close enough that her words brush against me like a whisper. I glance up, and she is nearer than I expected, the faintest trace of perfume wrapping around me, subtle and elegant, like jasmine blended with something warm and earthy. Her sleeve slides down as she gestures, revealing the delicate line of her wrist, a small, human detail that makes her suddenly feel less like an untouchable figure and more like a woman. As she guides me through the correction, her arm brushes mine, a light graze, nothing intentional, but it sends a shiver through me all the same. My hand tightens around the pen to hide the tremor. Her fingers, long and graceful, rest just inches from my own, the skin pale against the dark wood of the desk. She notices my stillness. For a moment, her voice falters, just enough to tell me she feels it too. Then she clears her throat gently and straightens a fraction, as though reclaiming her composure. Focus, she murmurs, her voice quieter now, less for instruction and more for herself. But I can't. Not fully. Not when the warmth of her presence lingers at the edge of my skin, not when every brush of fabric against my sleeve makes the air thicken. I nod, trying to seem attentive, though my chest rises faster than it should. She points at the words again, her fingertip close enough that I could reach out and touch it with mine. The thought is reckless, but it refuses to leave me. Then, as quickly as it began, she pulls her hand back, gathering her papers. The spell breaks. She moves on to another desk, her footsteps steady, her shoulders squared. Yet the echo remains, the warmth where her sleeve touched me, the subtle tremor in her breath, the way her eyes flickered down for just a heartbeat too long. It was nothing, a simple correction at a student's desk. But to me, it was everything. Because for the first time, touch had slipped into the silence between us. And nothing about it felt accidental. The final bell rings, and the room empties with a flood of footsteps and chatter. Desks scrape against the floor, laughter spills into the hallway, and soon the noise fades, leaving only an echo behind. I should leave too. That's what I tell myself. But my hand lingers on my notebook, and my body refuses to move. She remains at her desk, stacking papers with careful precision, as if delaying her own departure. The classroom feels different now without the hum of students, heavier, suspended, as though the walls themselves are listening. I sense it, that quiet weight pressing down on both of us. I rise slowly, pretending to gather my things. Each movement is deliberate, buying me time. I glance at her, and she glances back, though only for a second. That second, though, feels longer than it should, a silent acknowledgement that I'm still here when I shouldn't be. Do you need something? She asks finally, her voice calm, controlled, but softer now without the classroom noise to carry it. I clear my throat, though words don't come easily. I wanted to ask about the notes, I say, though it's a weak excuse. She knows it. I know it. She rises from her chair, crossing the short distance between us. The faint sound of her heels taps against the floor, steady, measured. She stops just close enough that I can see the faint curve of tiredness beneath her eyes, the gentle line of her mouth, the way her hair slips loose from the pins she wears. Up close, she feels less like a teacher and more like a woman, graceful, human, real. Notes, she repeats, almost to herself, before lowering her gaze to my open notebook. She points with the tip of her pen, but her hand hovers nearer than necessary. The classroom is too quiet, every breath, every shift of fabric, every heartbeat feels amplified. I nod, though I don't look at the page. I look at her. At the way her profile softens in the dim afternoon light, at the small furrow in her brow as she pretends to focus on my writing instead of the silence between us. The sound of a chair dragging in the hallway startles us both, but it fades quickly, leaving us again in that fragile bubble of stillness. She inhales, steadying herself, then steps back. You should go, she says, her tone firmer now, though her eyes linger a moment too long before looking away. I close the notebook, but I don't move right away. I let the silence stretch, let the weight of what's unspoken hang between us. Because in that empty room, with nothing but the ticking clock and the scent of her perfume lingering in the air, I feel the beginning of something I cannot ignore. The door to the hallway closes with a faint click, and suddenly the room belongs to us alone. The silence isn't peaceful anymore, it hums with an invisible pull, like a string stretched too tight. I can feel it in my chest, in my pulse, in the way my hand lingers just above the desk as though waiting for hers to return. She stands by the window now, papers still in her hand but forgotten, her gaze fixed on the fading light outside. Her profile is calm, almost guarded, but there's a tremor in the way she presses her lips together. It's a small detail, but it betrays her. I take a step closer, the floor groaning softly beneath me. She notices, of course. She always does. Her head tilts, her eyes finding mine, and for a long moment neither of us says a word. The air is thick with all the things we haven't spoken. Then, as I move nearer, her hand rises instinctively, not to push me away, not to guide me back, but to rest lightly against my wrist. Her touch is gentle yet firm, her fingers cool against my skin, carrying a quiet warning. "Stay quiet," she whispers, her voice so low I almost wonder if she meant me to hear it. Her words ripple through me, more powerful than if she had shouted. They are not just instruction, they are confession, a plea to silence the world outside, to leave what we are feeling unspoken. But silence has its own language, and right now it speaks louder than words. I swallow hard, my throat dry, and lean in just enough that I can see the faint tremble of her lashes, the soft rise of color in her cheeks. My voice is barely there when I answer, but every syllable carries the truth I can't hold back. "Then kiss me softer." The words are reckless, foolish even, but they hang in the air between us like something sacred. She exhales sharply, a sound caught between disbelief and surrender. Her grip on my wrist doesn't tighten, doesn't pull away. It lingers, hesitant, conflicted, yet unwilling to let go. Her eyes search mine, as if looking for a reason to deny what's unfolding, but instead she finds only the quiet certainty of my longing. I don't move closer. I don't force it. I simply wait, the way one waits for a storm to break. For a moment, the world holds its breath with us. The ticking clock, the fading light, the hush of the room, everything bends toward this fragile instant. And though her lips do not yet meet mine, I feel the weight of that whispered command binding us, drawing us into a silence that is no longer empty, but alive with the promise of something neither of us can ignore. The moment stretches, fragile as glass. Her hand is still on my wrist, but now it feels less like a command and more like an anchor, as if she's holding on to something she isn't ready to release. Her eyes search mine, steady but conflicted, carrying a weight that words could never carry. She steps back, only a little, folding her arms across her chest in a gesture that seems more like protection than distance. The papers she had been holding slip onto the desk unnoticed. Her gaze lowers to the floor, then flickers upward again, sharp with unspoken warning. "This isn't right," she murmurs, her voice rougher now, as if each syllable costs her strength. The words slice through me, not because they surprise me, but because I can hear the truth beneath them. If she truly wanted me gone, her voice would be firmer, her body turned away. But instead she stands before me, rooted in the same hesitation I feel, a tug of war between reason and desire. I shift, uncertain, torn between apology and persistence. My chest feels heavy, my pulse unsteady. "I know," I whisper, the honesty raw in my throat. But does that make it any less real? Her arms tighten across her body, as though to shield herself from the question. The silence between us grows louder, filled with the ticking clock and the faint hum of the lights overhead. Every detail feels sharper now, the curve of her shoulders beneath her blouse, the faint tremble in her fingers, the way her lips part as though she wants to speak but can't. I take a slow step closer, careful not to push, careful not to break the fragile boundary she's struggling to maintain. She doesn't retreat. Her breath catches, almost imperceptibly, but enough for me to hear it. "This will only hurt us," she says finally, though her voice wavers, betraying her. "You don't understand the cost." She's right. I don't. Not fully. But what I do understand is the way her presence lingers in me like a song I can't forget, the way every glance feels like a secret we've already begun to share. My voice steadies, softer this time, almost pleading, maybe some things are worth the risk. Her eyes close for a moment, as if gathering strength. When they open again, they glisten, not with weakness, but with the weight of a choice she isn't ready to make. The space between us feels electric, alive with all that's unspoken. And though she doesn't answer, though her arms remain folded and her words hang heavy in the air, I can feel it, she's fighting herself just as fiercely as I am. The silence between us grows unbearable. It isn't the silence of avoidance anymore, but of inevitability, like two tides waiting to crash into each other. She stands so still, her arms folded tight across her chest, as if holding herself together by force. And yet her eyes betray her, softening every time they meet mine. I don't move closer. I don't dare. Instead, I let the quiet do its work. I breathe carefully, trying to steady the storm inside me. My hands rest on the desk, open, unthreatening, as though to say, I won't push, but I won't step away either. Something in her shifts. A sigh escapes her lips, weary yet tender, like someone surrendering not to me, but to herself. Slowly, as though her body acts before her mind can stop it, her arms fall back to her sides. She hesitates, her hand hovering mid-air, trembling faintly, before she reaches out. When her fingers touch my cheek, the world stops. It's the lightest graze, her palm resting against my jaw, her thumb brushing just once across my skin. The warmth of her touch sends a ripple through me, grounding me and undoing me all at once. I don't move. I don't breathe. I simply let myself feel the honesty in that moment. Her eyes flicker over my face, studying me the way one studies something fragile. The distance between us narrows, not through boldness but through gravity, as if we've both been leaning toward this without realizing it. She exhales softly, her breath brushing my temple as she leans in, and then I feel it, the faintest press of her lips against my skin. Not on my mouth, not where temptation would demand, but at the edge of my temple, soft, fleeting, achingly tender. It is less a kiss and more a confession, spoken without words. My eyes close, savoring it. The world narrows to the warmth of her lips, the faint tremor in her breath, the gentle weight of her hand holding me in place. Time bends, stretches, until even the ticking clock fades into silence. When she pulls back, it isn't abrupt. Her hand lingers on my face, her thumb tracing once more along the line of my jaw. Her eyes meet mine, shimmering with something fragile, something she has tried so hard to deny. It isn't passion that fills the space between us now. It's something quieter, deeper, trust, vulnerability, the acknowledgement of a bond neither of us intended but can no longer ignore. For the first time, she doesn't try to speak. She doesn't tell me to stop, doesn't remind me of the rules. She simply lets the silence hold us, and in that silence, I feel it, the gentle surrender neither of us can take back. The room feels different now, quieter, softer, as if the air itself has shifted to hold the weight of what just passed between us. Her hand slips from my cheek slowly, almost reluctantly, leaving behind the warmth of her touch like an echo on my skin. For a heartbeat, we just stand there, close enough that I can still feel her breath, far enough that the world might still believe nothing happened at all. Her eyes lower to the desk, to the scattered papers she had abandoned earlier. She gathers them with careful, deliberate movements, though her fingers are unsteady, fumbling slightly in ways they never do when she is in control. That tiny break in composure tells me more than words ever could. This stays between us, she says at last, her voice steadying, though it carries a faint tremor. It isn't a command, not really. It's a plea, a fragile thread tying her dignity to the moment we've shared. I nod, not because I must, but because I want to. Because I understand. Of course, I whisper, my voice low, meant only for her. She exhales, setting the stack of papers down again as though even she doesn't believe the pretense of order. For a moment, her shoulders drop, and I see her not as a teacher, not as someone bound by roles and expectations, but as a woman, tired, vulnerable, yet quietly strong. The ticking clock returns, each second reminding us that time hasn't stopped, even though it feels like it should have. I step back, giving her space, though every part of me aches to stay in that closeness. Her eyes lift to mine once more, and in them I see both fear and something softer, a promise unspoken, a door not entirely closed. When I finally gather my notebook and sling my bag over my shoulder, the room feels heavier than before. Not in sadness, but in the quiet knowledge that something delicate has begun here, something neither of us can name, yet both of us feel deeply. As I reach the door, I pause, glancing back. She's still at her desk,